And good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. This is Brenda Rogers, and I'm a naturopath specialising in women's health and particularly midlife, menopausal women. And it's my absolute pleasure to be here with Tory von Bergen this afternoon, and we're talking about nutrition. Welcome, Tory.
Hello, Brenda. Great to be here.
Now, we're promoting our upcoming event, which is Staples for a Nourishing Kitchen, based on the Wise Traditions diet. And Tory is an expert in that, having followed the principles and diet and taken her time to implement some of the concepts, or most of the concepts, over the last 12 or 14 years. And so she has a lot of wisdom to share with us. She's also since then studied nutrition and become a nutritionist. And she has a family where she puts all of this stuff into practice. So, Tory, tell us about being a Wise Traditions mum in the kitchen. What is that like for you?
Oh, it's just endlessly wonderful and giving. I can really see results with myself, but with my kids, I can see their grow, the way they grow. They're tall and slim, but they're heavy. They've got strong bone density. I can see now the boys are getting into teenage years, and their faces and their facial structure is developing as it should. Although I wasn't eating this diet when I was pregnant with them. So I have made an effort to bring in these components that help with that. I can see that they're good readers and they don't have problems at school. I can see that they're calm. Obviously they're like any other child, and they can all be difficult on us sometimes, but I can see that the diet is helping, and I'm feeling it in my own body, because to be able to continue to cook like this, you also need to be healthy and well yourself.
Yeah, well, you're a role model, aren't you?
Oh, so, I'm trying.
So I want to come back to, the time that you spend in the kitchen, and you've mentioned to me before about, it takes a while for things to adapt and adopt to a new diet. So I want to come back to that briefly at the end. But one of the things that Weston Price Foundation teaches is that grains and legumes need to be prepared properly if you're not going to have serious gut issues, or have those things take away nutrients from the body rather than give them. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that happens?
Yeah, so they implore that grains and flours be properly prepared. So they call it a proper preparation, which just requires soaking. And the soaking is in filtered water, just with some lemon juice or some apple cider vinegar. And what that does, it releases any enzyme inhibitors and any phytic acid in the grains. So for instance, if you are going to soak some navy beans, some raw navy beans, that will release any enzymes or phytic acid in them. So when you so you can soak them for, up to 24 hours, and then you're cooking them, and then the digestibility is far greater. So it's almost like they're being pre-digested for you. So your body, your digestive system doesn't have to do so much work. And I think that's a lot of where we come across digestive issues in grains and flours when they're not prepared properly.
Well, I understand the commercial production of bread, which a lot of people these days are trying to avoid. All the gluten-free movement, which unfortunately moves them just to other grains, which isn't always good for our gut either. Yeah. But the commercial production of bread, the time that those bacteria have to digest those elements in the grain is very limited. It's like risen 2 hours and then cooked, and bang, it's on the truck, and you know, obviously we need that for the amount of for the low cost and the amount of production that they're doing. But that is it right that that's affecting a lot of people's you know, response to wheat and causing that whole gluten-free movement in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, gluten is definitely a problem, but there's other proteins in the bread like gliadin that also could be, you know, difficult on the gut. And really those types of breads, they're not a whole food. They're so over-processed. They're not really doing anything for us except raising our insulin levels. So, I mean, we can make our own sourdough breads if you're game, or maybe swap with someone that's making them down the road, which would be much more time, it would be much more helpful for you in the kitchen when you're creating all of these beautiful Western price meals.
Yeah. So I think from my experience, soaking beans, legumes, has been, you know, standard practice.
Yeah.
But soaking grains, that's something new to me.
Yeah, well, it does the same thing. So they're pre-digested, and it also activates a lot of the vitamins in it. Just like you've got a seed growing in the ground, and when it starts to open, its potential is released. So we want to do that as well. So we're not putting the digestive system under so much strain, which it already is really anyway.
So do you soak whole grains and then grind them, or do you soak the flours, or both?
Look, I'll soak whatever I've got. I soak buckwheat flour for buckwheat pancakes, which is the easiest, most delicious dessert around. Breakfast or dessert around. So I will get my buckwheat flour out and I will soak it in actually milk, kefir. And then in the morning, it's this incredibly delicious, sour smelling batter. And then I will fry that in ghee, and then we'll have it for breakfast with other beautiful condiments.
Yeah.
So flours can be soaked, seeds, grains, beans.
Well, we're having pizzas, and I want to find a new alternative, gluten-free alternative for the base. Have you got any ideas?
Oh, for sure, Brenda. Heaps of ideas. But I do love almond meal for a pizza base, or even potato flour.
Yeah, I was thinking coconut flour, but
it can get a little dense. Maybe just a couple of spoonfuls of that with something else.
Yeah, right. Okay, that sounds good. All right, so just to finish off, because if we want to learn more, we've got to come along to the webinar, right?
Absolutely.
Tell me about, you know, I know some people object to cooking from scratch because they don't have the time. And I'd like to know what advice that you give to women, particularly those who may have struggling children or teens, or a husband who's sick, or who are sick themselves.
Yeah.
And in a sense, they really do need to get into the kitchen to cook from scratch, but it just seems impossible to find the time. Tell us about where you were when you started, and how you came, like the process.
Yeah. I think, look, I simplify it all down. You have to. I cook in bulk and batch cook and freeze a lot. I also am very acquainted with a slow cooker, or even just my French cuiseur pot, of which I just leave in the oven or on the stove. Also, these things, you know, if you're roasting a chicken is so easy, and can also be up to 2 meals, and keeping the bones, it's just and keeping the bones for broth. Like, it's just an ongoing process. And I think once you're in the zone, you're doing things which actually create a meal for the next night as well. So it's just those initial hurdles to get over, and then it's quite a flow, and it's quite an art. And I love to think that you can anchor the family in a family meal preparation, and then in health, and then at the table. So you can get them all started into this, and you don't have to do it all at once. So just changing 1 or 2 things up at a time might be helpful as well, so it doesn't become overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, I know I've been following this for just over a year, so you're way further down the track than me. But at the beginning, it was like, oh my gosh, I looked at the Wise Traditions cookbook and closed it and thought, not for me. And then, but just a little bit of intention, and I literally did start with, butter, and then building and building. And I'm not as organised yet as you, which is why I want to learn more from you. But it's just such a joy to have my kitchen turn into a factory of ferments, and creating our own fermented beverages, and our own artisan sourdough bread, and my own yogurt, which I can then make whey, and then it's such a glorious feeling to have this, this domain in which I'm the queen.
Totally, Brenda. Look, there is nothing wrong with being in the kitchen these days. I think that it's totally underrated now, and more than ever now, we need to get on top of this, because we have failing kids and all sorts of problems in schools and at home because their nutrition is not right. So I think it's empowering. I have no bones about wonderful things that I want to continue to do in the kitchen.
Oh, same. Absolutely. And well, we will learn more. The next installment is coming up with staples for a nourishing kitchen. And I'm hosting, and Tory is our guest speaker. So we'll be in the kitchen giving you knowledge and practical tips and ideas and strategies for implementing nutrient-dense foods into your diet and your family's diet. That's coming up on the 4th of November it's 2020, in case you're watching this video a year down the track. It's advertised on Eventbrite as Staples for a Nourishing Kitchen with Tory and the Western Price Foundation. So if you use those keywords, you'll definitely find it. Or it may be in the links in the comments below if you're watching this on Facebook. 7 p.m. Sydney time. And we'd love and adore for you to be with us. So thanks so much, Tory. I'm very excited about the upcoming event, and look forward to seeing you then. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Brenda. It's going to be fantastic.